Welcome to episode 5 of the Mule Taming series, where we take 2 feral mules and teach them the basics of groundwork. Starting with Brownie, I want to begin by saying both Brownie and Blondie made it to the round pen today. I've been working with them mainly in their stalls just to get them a bit more halter broke and leadable before trying to lead them to the round pen. It's not a very long walk, but it's just safer for them to at least have the basics of leading down before trying to get them into the round pen. And today we finally made it. In the previous episode, I was struggling to get Brownie to give to pressure and continue leading because we had such limited room in the pens. So now I'm taking her in the round pen and I'm going to work on that leading a bit more. You can see that I'm walking in front of her just like I was doing the other day, applying that pressure. And when she gives to that pressure, I release it. So you can see right there, she gave me several good steps. I'm going to start walking off and getting her to lead and follow me. And you can see that she's starting to go right back to where she was in those first few days, where she is leading a lot better. She's following me very well, giving to pressure, and I don't really have to do very much. You can also see that another thing I do is I stop, and I want Brownie to stop with me. If I back up, I also want Brownie to back up a step or two. It kind of took some encouragement, but she did back up and do that, so I was very proud of her for that. Next up, I'm just going to work on some desensitizing with the lead rope. I went to throw it over her back. She kind of freaked out a little bit, so I'm just going to take that lead rope, do it again, and do it several times until she starts to just stand there a little bit more calmly. You can see that she's swishing her tail. She was kind of moving away from it a little bit. All signs that she's a little bit nervous about what I'm doing. You can see now that she's standing a lot calmer. She's not trying to walk off. So I'm very proud of her just for picking up on desensitizing fairly quickly. She's also letting me put that rope around her hind legs, which is great because I need to start working with her on picking up those hind legs. I switched to the other side and continued desensitizing with that rope. We only had one moment where she did go to move off, so overall not bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect that lead rope, kind of just do a quick tie around her neck, and I'm going to work on lunging her. I'm going to do free lunging. In the past, I've just tried lunging with the rope. Now I'm going to do some free lunging and see how she does with that. I'm going to apply the exact same practices. I'm going to point in the direction I want her to go and apply some pressure behind her with the lunge whip. You can see here that she kind of starts to pick up speed. I'm going to try and get her into a trot just to try and get her going a little bit faster, and you can see that she picks up on that circle okay. She does stop for a brief moment, so I just continue to encourage her to keep going around me, keep moving forward, and all of that fun stuff. So I'm super duper proud of her because she was able to pick up on free lunging fairly quickly. I think having more space in the round pen is going to make a huge difference for both of these mules and just help them continue to progress further in their training. Right here, I go to step in front of Brownie's drive line so I can ask her to change direction. I'm going to point in the direction I want her to go, apply some pressure with that lunge whip, and you can see that she does go to change direction fairly easily, which is a good thing. She stops here for a brief moment. I know she's a little bit out of frame, so I'm just going to encourage her to keep going forward and continue to go in that circle around me. She gives me a little bit of a trip right there, but overall, she's not doing too terribly bad. She does still keep stopping in that one spot, so the next time that we start coming up on that spot, I'm just going to apply some extra pressure before we get there to try and encourage her not to stop. She still does it, but with time, she will definitely get better with this. Since she did very well with free lunging, I'm going to take a moment to take the lunge whip and do some desensitizing with the lunge whip. Sometimes with feral equines, once you try to drive them with the lunge whip, it can make them a little bit nervous of the lunge whip. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing a healthy mix of driving her with the lunge whip as well as desensitizing her with the lunge whip. And you can see again, she's just standing nice and calmly. She doesn't really seem to have gained any fear or anything towards the lunge whip. I've been using it a lot, as you guys have seen in previous videos, so I'm really not too concerned. Just remember that some horses and some equines do get a little bit nervous when you drive them with that lunge whip, so just make sure you're desensitizing just as much. You can see here I'm starting to smack it on the ground around her. She backs up a step or two, but overall she doesn't have a very big reaction towards it. Now we're going to start working on some of the prerequisites of starting a horse under saddle. Even though Brownie is a mule, that's just kind of what I tend to call it. So I'm going to start with lateral flexion, and I just want her to give to that pressure and kind of turn her head towards the side. Lateral flexion can be a super great behavior to teach bend, turning when they go to start under saddle, and just a variety of other things. If you go and check out my series on YouTube, I have an entire series called the Colt Starting Prerequisites, and I have 10 behaviors, 10 different videos of things that you should teach every single horse or mule on the ground before you start them under saddle. And even if they are started under saddle, they're just 10 very good groundwork behaviors for a horse or mule to learn. Moving on, we're going to start with vertical flexion. You can see that I'm just leaning down in front of her, applying some pressure with that lead rope, and I just want her to drop that head just a smidge. And this is another good behavior. It's kind of like a building block behavior. It is good for relaxation, responsiveness, as well as teaching collection later on down the road. Moving on to picking up the front feet, you can see she's picking it up a lot better for me, but she still tries to jerk it away. So when she does that, I just hold on. You can see that time she jerked it away from me once. I held on to that front foot, and then she stopped jerking it rather quickly. So if you do have a horse that tries to jerk their hoof away, just try and hold on to it best you can. And then when they stop trying to jerk it away and stop trying to fight you, release that pressure. Right here, I'm starting to try and get her to lead forward a little bit more. I'm going to try and do this several times throughout the session just so that I can continue to work with her on leading and giving to pressure. Overall, she's not doing a bad job with leading. She still sometimes plants her feet or stops, but overall, she's still giving to pressure. She's still leading, so I'm very proud of her for that. Now we're going to move to working on the other front leg, and you can see that she's a little bit more skeptical with me on this one like she has been from the beginning. I'm able to hold it up for a brief moment there, but she does go to lean backwards, and so I'm going to try and pick up that front leg again. You can see that again, she's kind of just trying to move around a little bit. She's expressing that she's a little bit uncomfortable with what I'm trying to do, so I'm going to have her lead for a few steps, and I'm going to try it another time. She starts to back up a little bit, which is okay. I'm just going to very slowly work my hand down her leg and see if I can reach a point where I can pick it up like I did at the very beginning. The goal is for her to not feel the need to move away or try to avoid me. And so it's just something that's going to come with time. So we're going to take a break from that for now. I'm going to ask her to lead, and we're going to move on to the next thing. We're going to move on to yielding the hindquarters. So that is where the hind end spins around the front end. You can see that just the slightest amount of pressure, she's already yielding that hind end very well. I go to do it in the opposite direction, and I have pretty much the same response. She's doing a very good job at yielding the hindquarters, even though this is something I haven't worked with her too much on yet. Now we're going to work on yielding the forequarters. I'm going to have one hand on her neck, and I'm going to have one hand on her shoulder, and I'm just going to apply some pressure and get her to move that front end over. So yielding the forequarters is just like yielding the hindquarters, except it's the front end moving around the hind end. Yielding in general is very good for body control. It's very good for responsiveness. Just a bunch of things. I really don't want to have to use as much pressure as I am. I feel like I'm kind of leaning a lot of my weight into her. That time was a little bit better. Over time, I shouldn't have to use as much pressure. She'll become a lot more responsive to it and a lot softer to my cues as well. Moving on to Blondie. So Blondie has also officially made it into the round pen today, so I'm very proud of her for leading over here very well. She's been a lot easier to lead than Brownie throughout the entire series so far, but overall, I'm going to take some time to just work on those boundaries. I'm going to walk forward a little bit. I'm going to have her lead and follow me, and then when I decide to stop, I'm going to make sure that Blondie stops as well and stays out of my little bubble. Right here, she's kind of a little bit in my bubble, but I'm not going to push it too hard. Right here, she goes to walk in front of me a few steps, so I'm going to just try and move her around or do a circle and show her that, hey, if you stop, great, but you can't stop too much in my space. Right here, this time I go to stop again. I did apply a little bit of pressure when asking her to stop, and overall she did very well for that. She wasn't too much in my space that time. I'm going to move on to some desensitizing with the lead rope. This is something that Blondie has been very good at since day one, so I'm not really too concerned about it. Now to move on to free lunging, I have that lead rope tied around her neck. I'm going to pick up the lunge whip, and I'm going to get Blondie to go in a circle around me. The last session we had, Blondie definitely struggled with lunging because she kept trying to turn and face me. Hopefully with more room being in an actual round pen, we can try and work on this habit of hers a little bit more. So I'm just going to point in the direction I want her to go, apply some pressure from behind her with the lunge whip, and you can see that she's moving very nicely in that circle around me. She goes to turn, and so I'm just going to cut in front of that drive line and ask her to go back in the direction she was originally going. Here she kind of starts to face me a little bit, and I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to use my body to communicate to her which direction I want her to go. She is moving very well. She still stops and turns to face me, but overall she's not stopping, turning to face me and trying to come to me, so having more room in the round pen definitely seems to be helping. After some consistent circles, I go to step in front of that drive line, and I'm going to ask her to switch direction and go the other way. This was specifically the direction that she was struggling with, so we're going to see if I can get her keeping some forward movement, going in some circles around me and not stopping to face me as often. You can see that she's actually doing a really good job. She already gave me one solid circle, and she just continues doing the exact same thing. So overall, she's doing a lot better with free lunging than I anticipated, especially because last time we definitely had a bit of a rough time. Here I go to step in front of her drive line, and I start working my way towards her, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. Going to work on some lateral flexion. You can see that she's giving to pressure very well. She's not really fighting me very much, and she's already becoming softer and more responsive in the terms of lateral flexion. I go to switch directions and she kind of cuts me off for a moment, but overall nothing too crazy. I go to ask her to flex in the opposite direction, and again, she is still giving to that pressure and turning that head around like I ask her to. Now we're going to move on to picking up her feet. With her front legs, she is doing phenomenal like she always does. She lets me mess around with them, play around with them. So the goal is to start getting her front legs between my legs so that I can trim her up a little bit and clean up her hooves because they definitely are a little bit rough. So I move to the other side. I try to get that other front leg up and she gets it up. She holds it up for me, stands very politely while I mess with it a little bit. So overall, that is very good. I'm very proud of her for that. And then we're going to move on to the hinds. The difference with today is my goal is not to have to use a lead rope or a lunge whip on the hinds, and to hopefully just be able to start doing it with my hand in general. I'm not going to necessarily try and do anything crazy, pick it up or hold it up. I just want her to let me start touching her hinds and be a little bit more comfortable with it. So I'm going to start rubbing down her hind leg. Every time I rub, I try to go a little further down. And in just a moment here, you might see that I start to squeeze just to see if she lifts it up. She lifts it up, I release that pressure, and I go back to petting her shoulder because she did a very good job there. I'm going to go through, I'm going to do it again, squeeze that hind leg. She picks it up. She kind of like acted like she was going to kick. She kind of picks it up super quickly, but overall, she's letting me pick it up with my hands, and she's not trying to kick out or do anything crazy. Moving to the other side, I have pretty much the same response from her. I keep moving my hand further and further down her hind leg. She's already kind of got it cocked for me, so I'm just going to continue to err on the side of caution, stand at her shoulder. She lets me reach a point where I can touch her cannon bone, and so I'm just going to keep doing it until I feel confident enough that I can maybe squeeze her leg and actually get her to pick it up. You can see right here, I squeeze it. She does pick it up rather quickly, but she doesn't kick or strike out or anything, so I'm just going to release that pressure, go back to it. That time, she didn't pick it up as quickly, so I was very proud of her for that. And here we go with third time, and she's picking that up. I was even able to hold on to it for a brief second. So overall, she's doing great picking up her feet. Now we're going to work on yielding the hindquarters. You can see that she moves that hind end around her front end beautifully. She doesn't really give me much or try to walk forward or anything crazy. Moving on to the other side, we have pretty much the exact same response. She's moving that hind end around. She's not really moving that front end very much, so I'm just going to tell her that she's doing a good job and give her some love for it. Here I'm going to ask her to do a few more steps. She's continuing to do a good job. She is backing up a little bit more than I'd like her to, but she does eventually stop backing up, moving her front end as much, and yield that hind end like I'm asking her to. Moving on to yielding the forequarters, you can see that I'm definitely applying a lot of pressure, a lot of body weight. She just barely lifts that one leg, and I'm going to release pressure and reward that. I'm going to ask her again. She gives me a bigger step that time. Ultimately, the goal is for me not to have to use as much pressure and to have those front legs cross as she yields those forequarters. She's definitely making progress. She's definitely getting a lot better. I don't have to use a lot of pressure even from just those few times, so I'm perfectly comfortable with that for her. I'm going to switch to the other side and start asking for pretty much the exact same thing. That time she does cross those front legs beautifully. So I'm very proud of her for that. We're going to get a few more steps out of her. She is crossing that front end. I'm very pleased with how she's doing with yielding both the hindquarters and the forequarters. Before we end the session, I'm going to work just a little bit more on petting Blondie's ears and just working with her on her head shyness. You can see that I'm rubbing her neck, and I go behind her ear and I just barely rub my hand over her ear and then take it off and move back to her neck. The goal is to get her a lot more comfortable with it to the point where I can rub her ears all over. It seems like she's starting to make progress. Like, she's not throwing her head as much. She's definitely turning her head, but like compared to where we started, she'd like throw her head and her whole front end away from me. Now she's kind of just like throwing her head. Right here, I'm actually able to start scratching just the base of her ears. She's definitely bracing against it. She's definitely, like holding her head a little bit a ways, but it's still progress, and this is something that's just going to take time. So we're going to end the session there because both of them did phenomenal.